You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. Race 92 is a vintage-inspired racing apparel brand specializing in celebrating vintage race culture and adapting to motorsports today. Check out race92.com for all your racing merchandise needs. I'm your co-host, Aaron Mack. To other co-host, you may have seen walking out of Barberlon's 459 with a big old smile on his face. You may have seen him most recently at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this weekend. He is Scott Bally.
Hello, Aaron.
How's it going?
I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. Man, as anybody can tell, if you're watching, I'm a little red. As always, anytime I spend time out in the sun.
Still working on the whole sunscreen thing.
I used it. I
Did
used
you?
sunscreen. Yeah, I did.
What SPF?
50.
Oh, okay.
It's a kids blend, so maybe it's different. I don't know.
Kids blend.
That's what it says on the can.
Oh,
No, I had a good time. The weather could have either been rainy or sweltering hot, and it chose sweltering hot, which is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
It's been cold here, so that's good. Big crowd. Speedway had a nice crowd, I thought, for the race. So all in all, it was a good weekend.
Yeah, very good weekend. We got to cheer on our good friend of the show, Mr. Jagger Jones.
Yeah, and Sting Ray Robb.
Sting Ray Robb. Can't forget about Sting Ray.
Simon Pagenaud and Will Power and anybody else we've interviewed. But no, we were guests of Cape Motorsports, Jagger Jones, and thanked them for that. And it was a good weekend. I mean, unfortunately, the results weren't so great, but it wasn't for the lack of trying. Team working hard. It's their first year in Indy Lights, at least underneath all the new formats and that sort of thing. I think they've been there before years ago, or Indy Next, I should say. So, I mean, it's a hell of a learning curve for everybody involved, and but he got a 14th out of it. He was challenging for spots. If they could have had a yellow, who knows? He may have ran right there with his teammate Anam.
Absolutely.
We just don't know. But other than that, it was a good weekend.
Absolutely. And IndyCar race, Alex Palou wins. It was, it's an interesting race. Not the most, and I don't know, many of the road course races really are there, but not the most exciting race. But I know Graham was trying some strategy because we were up there in one of the suites by the first turn of the road course, and you were saying like, oh, Graham is braking a lot sooner than all the other drivers, and he definitely was. I mean, he's definitely conserving fuel.
Yeah, he was lifting. I mean, so he was lifting maybe. I mean,
Lifting,
it was before the end of pit wall, which would be pin entrance on the oval. And he was lifting and coasting all the way to the corner. He did get pushed a little bit by McLaughlin, and he did pick it up a little. But as soon as he got that gap again, he started coasting again, just trying to save fuel. A couple of cars ran out right after the checker. Rosenquist was one. I forget the other. And so they were all just trying to make it to the end. Graham had a rough start to the race, but he ran top 10. All three cars, I think, qualified top 10, I believe, with Lundgaard obviously on the pole. So it looks like things are turning around for Rahal Letterman, which is good. The sport needs Rahal Letterman to be
absolutely
a contending team, and it looks like they're starting to turn that corner. And so I don't know. It was an interesting sneak peek of what the 500 is going to look like.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what, in like 2 weeks? 3?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
But besides IndyCar, we had there's NASCAR. I didn't watch the NASCAR race, but there were Darlington Raceway. William Byron won.
Yeah, I didn't really watch too much. I hit some of the highlights on YouTube. Ross Chastain again drawing the ire of many people, and up today for Rick Hendrick to be in a press conference with Jeff Gordon. And Rick Hendrick's basically saying, "You're not going to tear up my race cars. We'll just start crashing cars, basically, tearing up equipment." Um, he's really mad. I think that his cars are getting tore up so much, and not only his cars but Ross's. A lot of people feel like he's running way over his head. I believe that's my words, not anybody that I've seen say that. Um, I don't watch enough to really have an opinion, but I believe they got together in the Xfinity race too, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken about that, but it's definitely something that has been noticed in the sport, and I think teams are getting ready to start trying to take care of it themselves. So
Hmm.
it's going to get
Absolutely.
interesting. I mean, I'm in all the years I've watched NASCAR, I've never seen Rick Hendrick be a part of a press conference where basically he's saying, "Hey, we'll just start handling it ourselves," essentially.
Right.
You know, so
Before we get anything else, I mean, is there any other racing news you think we should cover?
not a ton. Honestly, I didn't pay attention to a lot this weekend, other than where we're at.
Right. Absolutely. Me either.
So I was getting up about 6 in the morning, and I would be in bed by 9 o'clock, and I didn't do much research in the few hours I was awake, not at the racetrack. So
Absolutely. A lot of walking and
yeah,
tiring when it's that hot.
yes, especially for someone like me.
Someone like you. And especially on Thursday because I know you had to walk.
Yeah,
The
I
people.
am not going to get into it here. I was not very happy with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on Thursday. They did. The ticket office was definitely informed of my opinion
Hmm.
before I left. That being said, the ticket office people were very kind,
Hmm. Oh
and I
yeah.
know it wasn't their issue.
No.
But I had to report to someone. They're in the main office, and that's who you have to talk to. I think
Um,
there's some things there are some things that have to be cleaned up there,
Absolutely.
because it's not just me that has issues.
I've had
And
issues.
I had one
I've had issues.
I had one issue in 3 days, so I'm not making it
Yeah.
sound like it was this horrible problem, but I can see where it would be for other people. I
Absolutely.
mean, so
Oh yeah.
um, that's all I'm gonna say about it. I was not happy. Doug's lucky he did not cross my path at any point because I he would have got an earful. Um, but that being said, I had an amazing time at Speedway as I always do. Um, Man, you and I were talking a little bit. Uh, I mean, you look at all of the equipment, the people, the haulers, the hospitality areas. Man, it is unbelievable uh, what it takes to put that circus on.
Yeah.
And that's going from town to town. I mean, it's bigger because it's here in Indy. You're going to be here for 3 weeks. So it's a little scaled down when they go to Alabama or
Sure.
Detroit or wherever, but it's still, man, that's a hell of a circus.
Oh, absolutely. It really is. So first off, so we're releasing today was our last live show at McGilvery's with good friend of the show, Sting Ray Robb. And I really can't say enough great things about Stingray. He's really
I agree.
one of the most down to earth drivers. And I will always be in debt to Stingray just how you know great he's been with us and how he's always willing to donate his time and pretty much anything we ask him to do, he's always done it. So I
He's
mean, can't thank
he's
him
ju-
enough.
he's just a top quality
Human being.
Human being. I think he generally cares about others
Mm-hmm.
outside of himself. And I'm not saying other drivers don't. This is my experience with this one person, and it's as we've talked about, and we touch on it in the show. His family and faith mean everything to him, above all else, and just a good dude. Always has a smile on his face.
Yeah.
I felt terrible how his race ended yesterday with
Yeah.
his teammate. That's auto racing. I mean, that's going to
Yeah.
happen. Um, you show me a racer that hasn't happened to, and I'll show you somebody that's never run hard. you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, other than that, yeah. I'll be honest with you. We've had some amazing guests at our live shows. Sting Ray is probably my favorite show just because
Yeah.
of who he is, and
Great personality and
that takes nothing away from any of the other shows we've had. But I so enjoyed it, and the crowd really enjoyed it. I mean, people lined up to get his autographs. People were taking photos and stopped to talk to him, and that really doesn't happen at our other shows, like
no.
our other live shows.
Well,
So
it did. Well, it definitely did for Al Jr. and
right,
Scott Goodyear, but yeah,
right.
not exactly.
So all that being said, I sure hope everybody enjoys it because I know I did.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, he's just, this past week, some people, if you follow us on YouTube or subscribe to YouTube, if you don't, please make sure you subscribe. Also, like and subscribe. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere podcasts can be found. But enough of the plug. If you follow or subscribe to us on YouTube, you'll see that we release the Sting Ray Robb go-kart video fast times. And that deal, I talk about it a little bit in the live show, but we had an issue. There was an issue with the track, and we got our helmets on, we're getting ready to go. And because of safety issues and issues with the track, it would have been fair. We couldn't do it, and Stingray had to come back, and he came back like a week later, and he wouldn't have had to do that. I mean, there's so many drivers who'd probably been like, I'm done, or just
Right,
whatever. And he's just like, I can't say enough good things about Stingray. He's just class act, and he's got an immense amount of talent. And hopefully, he will get some good opportunities here, and get some good results. But IndyCar's a learning curve, right? So you're not going to just jump in. I mean, you look at the greats today. I mean, I don't think any of them jumped in.
not really. I mean,
Alexander Rossi was never on anyone's radar before he won the 500. Like, I mean,
right,
I don't even know what he finished, but he wasn't doing anything great at all, and he just surprised. I mean, so many people were like, "Who's Alexander Rossi?" when he won the
right.
500. So, but Stingray's got a. I will say. So I've been through a couple of IndyCar autograph sessions. A Barber, and I mean IndyCar too. He interacts with every single fan that comes through, makes eye contact, which is huge. The thing I've noticed recently, and it's a little disappointing with some of the IndyCar drivers, is they're on their phones during the autograph sessions. They don't even look up. I've seen cases where people are sitting there with pictures for them to sign, and they're standing there for like 30 seconds, and the driver's not even paying attention to them.
Right.
And it's a little disappointing. You see it more and more with IndyCar drivers. And it's a little disappointing. But like Stingray, he's always interacting with people, always talking to everyone. There was actually a group of people in front of me in line at Barber, and they were just so excited to meet Sting Ray Robb, and they were going to get their picture taken with them, and they were talking about what they were going to say to him, and it was just really cool to see.
Well, one thing I noticed over there Saturday was a lot of Sting Ray Robb T-shirts,
Yeah,
merch, and his fans are fans.
absolutely.
Those people really. I mean, they are Stingray fans,
Mm-hmm. Well,
which is great. I mean, you got to have that.
Well, the thing with Sting Ray Robb is, and I'm not taking away from any other driver, but he obviously he's an American. He grew up watching IndyCar. he kind of told a story about like Elio, like Elio was racing before he was even born, like an
Right.
IndyCar. But he's just a big IndyCar fan, and he always has been, and just he's like fulfilling his dreams. And it kind of reminds me in a way of like Robbie McGee, because Robbie McGee was like a guy who never thought he would have an opportunity, because he was just a huge IndyCar fan, and he got to race in the 500, and it's just surreal to him. And I'm so happy for Stingray that he gets to, fulfill his dream this month. And yeah, I mean, definitely the best luck to him. And I think Delcoing cars are usually pretty quick at Indy. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Oh, I
mean,
mean,
yeah.
I mean, if the cards fall right,
Yeah.
he could easily be rookie of the race.
Oh,
I mean, yeah.
easily.
I mean,
Right.
the Speedway, the Speedway isn't like any other place.
No,
Um, so I mean, there's a damn good chance he could be rookie of the race at minimum.
absolutely. But like I said, I think everyone will enjoy this, the interview we did with him at McGilvery's. And yeah, I sure did.
Yeah, I did too. I really enjoyed it. Hey, give some shout outs to some of your friends that were there in the garage area when we were standing there talking.
Absolutely. The Graz area. Oh, my dad?
Yeah, like your dad and all your buddies that were standing there.
Oh yeah. So our buddy Ed, my dad, Ed actually got to race go-karts against
Yep.
Jimmy Kite. And then I'm trying to remember who was there, Jim. They all listened. I know Ed. Ed says he listens to podcasts on his way to work. So shout out to
Yep.
Ed. We love Ed on the Racer podcast. And my dad as well, if he's listening.
Right. Yeah. The guy with the long beard. I'm terrible with names. I'm so sorry. Younger guy has kind of the longer beard. He's been to one of our live shows.
John Roberts. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
I
so
think
yeah,
Brian Holgrave as well comes to some of our McGilvery shows. But yeah, as far as the rest of the month, I don't think we'll have a McGilvery show. I know we're working on at least one or two go-kart videos. They'll be releasing sometime. And then I got to give a shout out to the May memorabilia show that's going to be held in Plainfield. And I can tell you, I'll keep talking here, but I'll pull up here in a second exactly where it's going to be. But we're a sponsor. I think we may be set up there at some point doing the podcast. I don't know exactly when. I was trying to finalize a couple things. We definitely won't be there every single day or a lot, but we may try to do something there a little bit to help support them. I helped them get at least one or two guests lined up for their autograph sessions. So I think they'll be releasing that soon. But it is the Memorabilia So Indy 500 weekend. It's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the Embassy Suites Event Center in Plainfield, Indiana. 170 plus vendor tables, driver autograph sessions, live podcasts, and hundreds of giveaways and a silent auction. So, like I said, it's May 25th through the 27th at Embassy Suites in Plainfield, Indiana. If you look up Indy Memorabilia on Facebook, it is under that. Other sponsors, obviously, McGilvery's, Fast Times Indoor Karting. Like I said, just released Sting Ray Robb last week. The next one we'll be releasing will be Cody Swanson. So working on that edit now, which was great as well. And your that would have been the first one. Your nephew Chris made an
hmm
appearance in that one. So glad to have him in that one. And yeah, and last but not least, man, it was hot this weekend.
it
It
was hot.
got in the 80s, and ever since I called the good folks, the good guys, I've had zero issues. Knock on wood, but I'm not going to knock on wood because I know if I do have an issue, I can get them out here immediately and they will make it right.
Absolutely will. Yeah.
So I mean, it's crazy, right? Because you always talked about good guys, and I was always like, yeah, call good guys. But I took your word, like I believed you, but now I have actually experienced it. I have experienced the benefits of calling the good folks, the good guys. And yeah, I couldn't be happier. And like I said, if I have a problem, I know I can get a hold of them easily and quickly, and then come out and resolve my issue. So
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit before, and you've made the comment before, is like you were joking around like, man, say something and people do it. It's not so much that. It's just that I've always, when I can, I try to surround myself with good people.
Yeah.
And people that care, and they care.
Absolutely.
They're not just a nameless, faceless business that's going to try to upsell and all that. I mean, they really do try to fit the needs of the customer, and man, it's just a rare quality today. I mean, I feel, and
Yeah.
and I'm thankful that I have them to do work for me when I need it, and but it's rare that I need it because they do such good work. I don't need them to do anything, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, definitely check out Good Guys. If you have any AC issues, and you will not be disappointed. I promise you that. But other than that, like I said, please like and subscribe. Check us out on Apple Podcast, Spotify. And yeah, I think everyone will enjoy Sting Ray Robb. I wanted it. We were actually going to release this in a couple weeks, but I thought that we should probably release this now, because he really talks about kind of his feelings going into the Indy 500, and
Right.
just his thoughts about it, and just his excitement. He's really like a kid in a candy store, just being able to experience the full month of parade. We've talked about the parade a little bit, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And he talked about going I think he went to a thrift store and he bought like an old Elio shirt or something as
Yeah, he
well.
did.
So I thought it was appropriate that we release this before the 500, since he's kind of talking, so people can listen to his thoughts before he actually races in the 500 and qualifies for it. So yeah, I think everyone will enjoy it. And yeah, I
Well,
think
this was recorded the week, I believe, after
rookie
his first
orientation,
rookie
correct?
orientation, and then it was
April
before
20.
Barber,
Yeah.
but it was after he had run the Speedway
Yep.
and gotten laps. So it's really fresh on his mind. He's really good at describing feelings
Yeah.
and the dynamics of what it's like to drive a car.
And it is audio only. I had someone, I forget who it was, but someone was like, what was listening to like one of them of McGilvery's, and they were like, "There's no video," and I'm like, I thought my something was wrong with my computer. It's like, nope, there's no video. It's just pictures. It kind of simplifies it to an extent, makes it easier. A lot more moving parts when you have video for a live show like that, and I like to kind of keep it somewhat exclusive for people who come to the show.
Right.
Um, but you can still listen to it because I know not everyone can come to the show, maybe in a different state, may not be able to come for whatever reason. But yeah, thanks for everyone that came. And yeah, hope everyone enjoys.
I agree. Take care, everybody.
This is a Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92, live at McGilvery's Pub and Eatery. I'm your co-host, Darren McTeer. Other co-host, you may have seen walking out of Barber Lounge 459 with a big old smile on his face. He is Scott Bowie.
Yeah.
You were just there last week.
Yep. Last Wednesday, Thursday. What was it?
It was Thursday. It was right before Fast Times.
Yeah. It was before Fast Times.
Well, we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. We are a racing podcast, if you don't know, obviously, and we can be found on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts can be found. Please like and subscribe. Special thanks to McGilvery's for allowing us to do this. Make sure you buy food, buy drinks, and
Tip well.
Tip well. Also, Race 92. If you're looking for any racing merchandise, we do have an Allenser Jr. collection out now, officially licensed by Allenser Jr. Also, we have the Grant King Race Shops collection. Thanks to Top Gun Racing and Grant King Race Shops for sponsoring this. Also, Racer Collect, Patrick Patton, if you're looking for any racing memorabilia, he's your one source to go to, racercollect.com, right? Also, Fast Times Indoor Karting. And last but not least,
The good folks at Good Guys Heating and Air.
yep.
Yep.
And I kind of got in a mess a couple weeks ago, and they were able to fix my AC issue. So
Yep. You can do a testimony now for them.
if you ever have AC problems, we can definitely hook you up.
Okay. That's good.
But So we have a very special guest today. He is driver of the, I'm going to make sure I get it right, driver of the Dale Quinn Racing with Rick Ware Racing, number 51, Honda, and the NTT IndyCar Series, Sting Ray Robb.
You nailed that, by the way. That was perfect. You did better than me on that.
Well, I had to write it down because I was
Oh,
going to get it
okay.
wrong.
Well, that
Because
helps.
I mean, there's a lot there. It's like Dale Quinn Racing with. So last time we saw you was the Fast Times Indoor Karting for one of our Pro vs. Joe's video series. And yeah, when I announced you there, I think I just said Dale Quinn Racing. I forgot the Rick Ware Racing part.
It's all right. We'll include him now.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you're the perfect guest to have now because we're getting ready to go into the biggest month of the year in Speedway Indiana, Indy 500, and you will be attempting to qualify for the 500 and competing in the 500. So I know you just passed your rookie orientation, so congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you.
So like we said, the last time we saw you was at Fast Times Indoor Karting, and I got a little bit of a lesson of what it's like to race against a current IndyCar driver. But it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the track.
Yeah,
We can do driving lessons later,
yeah.
but it was better than expected. So all is well.
I think me and Jacob were both within like 0.8 of a second from you, so I'll take it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done many laps, and that was your first time there, but still.
Small details. You're not supposed to share those.
I know.
Keep those silent. You don't want to tell everyone that.
But we, yeah, so we were just at Fast Times last Thursday, right, Scott?
We were. Anything exciting happen, Aaron?
A couple of things happened. Not on track. I will say, like, as soon as Scott shows up to a situation like things, he usually attracts like crazy things. Like not
Yes.
things that he causes, but just like crazy stuff happens.
Should we all take stock of the room right now before anything exciting happens? Or?
No. So we go to leave, and
There was something that happened before, remember? Because I heard a loud noise. We were sitting there, I heard a loud noise, and Scott comes walking in. He had
Oh.
nothing to do with the loud noise.
well, yeah, there was a fire on the interstate.
But you said it so casually. I'm like, we just heard a loud noise. You're like, oh yeah, there's an explosion on 465.
Yeah, truck tire exploded. But so we go to leave. He had Kyle Kaiser, and did a video. They talked. Da 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 da. We go to leave, and there are police out in the parking lot with their shotguns pulled.
And they just started screaming at
Were
us.
they aiming at you or?
No.
Well, they made it. If they'd seen me, they would have. But tell them what happened, Aaron.
Well, no, someone was like, hey, there's something going on outside. And like we walked outside and I see like these two guys that kind of look like police officers, like 200 yards away. So it's next to the Western, I think it's a Western bowling alley
Something like that.
off
yeah.
96th Street and 96th and Keystone. Yeah. And so there was these two police officers and they had like these long guns. It looked like it. And I was just like, we were just kind of looking and all of a sudden they just start screaming, get inside, get inside. And so we went inside, and then yeah, it was kind of interesting because then all these other police started showing up, and before you know it, they were in the parking lot Fast Times, and then before you know it, they were behind my vehicle, using my vehicle as like a shield,
Right.
with assault rifles out. So then I'm like, hey, Kyle Kaiser just left. I'm like, I need to text him and make sure he's okay. So I text him. I'm like, hey man, like, did you get out okay? He's like, yeah, I got out before all the crazy stuff started happening. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, when I drove out, there was this completely naked guy walking down the street with pink hair walking towards Fast Times. And I'm like, don't you think you should have told me that? Like, it would have been nice to have a heads up, right, Scott?
Yeah, it'd been really nice. That it's one of those things, and we also learned, and thankfully no one, someone we didn't know was hurt, but
Yeah.
unfortunately someone did get hurt, but nobody in our group got hurt, and the police were very responsive, and
Even checked, even
yeah,
went around their way and
even
checked the
somehow
back
or another
doors.
they got in the back door, even though Trey Burke said all the doors are locked. So if anybody knows who Trey Burke is, Trey runs midget sprint cars. He runs USF juniors. He works up at Fast Times. He swore to us the doors were locked, and then the police walked in the back door.
He just froze. He's like, puts his hands up.
He
They
did
come in
put
with
his
their
hands
they come in with their guns up, and they're like, police. And he's just like, so you see him at pit, but you got to give him a hard time about that.
I actually got the inside scoop today, right before
oh,
I
he
came
talked
here.
about it?
Yeah, Trey mentioned it. And he said that he got a gun aimed at him by the cops because they thought that maybe he was the guy with the pink hair, but unfortunately he had clothes on, so he didn't qualify.
Yeah, well, that's probably it. But fortunately, I know Kyle was kind of nervous about the situation because he read that, right before that, he was like, this guy was shooting at random cars. But fortunately, he had got rid of the weapon. And I think one person was injured, but no one passed away or critically injured. So fortunately. But yeah, so I think from now on, like, we're gonna have to put like a disclaimer in the beginning of the video saying like no professional race car driver got injured in the making of this video.
Right.
But yeah, so tell a little bit about your season. So obviously, first year in IndyCar, and when we did the Fast Times deal with you, it was right after St. Pete, and St. Pete was kind of I'm going to say crash course, but there was a lot of stuff happening. You got to experience pretty much everything there is to experience in an IndyCar race.
Yeah. Yeah, lap one there was pretty exciting. I think that starting towards the back of the field, we got a late jump, and the field got spread out before we got down to turn one, and so I couldn't really see what was happening ahead of me. But obviously, go around turn three, and there's a stack of cars lined up across the racetrack. So I woed it down, got it sideways and around to the right side, but I got hit from behind by another pink car, and then continued to see flying cars through the air over my head land next to me. So luckily I was able to continue. I limped the car back to pit lane after the AMR safety crew got me fired back up, made some repairs, swapped out the front nose cone that was missing, put new front tires and rear tires on, and then went back out and just tried to get on the lead lap again. And then we got a drive-through penalty for fueling under caution. I guess this is all new to me. Pit stops are all new.
Right.
So I'm just doing what the team's telling me. They say pit stop, I do pit stop. They say drive-through penalty, I want to do a drive-through penalty. So this is after I've seen flying cars. And then I continued on in the race, saw another flying car with Kyle Kirkwood going through the air over the top of Jack Harvey. And then I watched Daly and Kyle Kirkwood also get together in the wall in turn 9. And then we ended up getting our lead lap back. So that was pretty exciting. And then had a tire issue later on in the race and then finished a few laps down. But still finished 16th, which for first race as an IndyCar driver, I was pretty happy. Thank you. One thing I did say to my engineers after the race, I asked them, I said, hey, are all IndyCar races like this? Because I'm kind of rethinking my job here. I don't know if this is really what I want to do. Flying cars and 3 hours in a hot Florida sun it's crazy. But it was fun. It was a good time.
What was the emotions like before the start of the race? Was it like any other race to you? Once you strapped in, it was just like everything else, or was it a little more surreal till the green?
I'll tell you what. I'm still trying to figure out if this is real or not.
Yeah.
It's every day I get up and I'm like, okay, I'm here. I look down, I see the Dale Coyne and Rick Ware logo, and I'm like, okay, I'm an IndyCar driver. Is that still real? Yeah, it's still real. I was actually having a conversation the other day with someone, and we were talking about the Indy Next series and how they don't do the Freedom 100 anymore. And I said, yeah, we just don't do the Freedom 100 anymore. And it's like, wait, I'm not an Indy Lights driver anymore. I'm an IndyCar driver now. So I think going into that race, the emotions were kind of all over the place. It was not so much nerves as much as it was excitement and anticipation for what was coming. But I was actually pretty calm because I had no clue of what to expect. I'm like, yeah, it's IndyCar racing. I wonder what this is going to be like. So the curiosity got the better of me, and I found out what it was like lap 1, turn 3.
So I usually ask people, usually like former drivers, like when you went into IndyCar, like what was your like welcome to the big leagues moment? But I would guess it was probably, what do you say, turn 3?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, when you see flying cars going through there, that's usually a good welcome sign.
Absolutely. You didn't get to experience that much in Indy Lights or Indy Pro?
No, actually in Indy Pro I did. So
Yeah.
back in Toronto in 2018, we had a crash in turn 1, and then going down the back straightaway there, if anyone knows the layout at Toronto, it's a tight right-hand hairpin at the end of a long straightaway. And the yellow flag was thrown somewhere down that back straightaway, and the cars behind us didn't see that yellow flag, and they were still chopping it up, racing each other. And one of them got pinched into the wall. Well, when he got pinched into the wall, he went in the air a little bit, and when he came down on the ground, all 4 corners of the car came off. So he was just a ski on the asphalt doing 140 miles an hour. And he hit the back of my car, and I was like a yellow jumping truck or something for him. And he went straight over the back of me, did a barrel roll through the air, and landed on the roll hoop and skidded to a stop in the barrier. He probably went 100 feet in the air. So Yeah, that happened in Indy Pro 2018. So if you guys want to look the video up on YouTube or whatever else, it's there. But he walked away. He raced the next day in a different car, mind it, but he was racing.
Right.
You know, so you know you're an IndyCar driver. You got the shirts, you pinched yourself and all that, and then the reality starts. St. Pete, Texas, Long Beach, testing at the Speedway. What is that like? I mean, because you gotta at some point it has to become business mode, right? I mean, it's all new and exciting the first time around, but it has to become, at some point you have to start feeling like, hey, this is great, but we got to get things done.
I felt that in preseason.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like, as new and exciting as this is, the racer in me wants to win.
Sure.
And so until I see that, I'm not going to be satisfied.
Right.
And so that started at the Thermal Club test way back in February. There was things that I saw in myself that I didn't like that I wanted to improve on. And so we've been doing that the whole time. That hasn't stopped, but I get to enjoy it on the side as well.
Right.
It's kind of a catch-22 deal where I can enjoy what I'm doing even while I'm not quite as good as I'd like to be at it yet.
What were those first laps at the Speedway like?
With 40-mile-an-hour winds, they were exciting.
I bet. Yeah.
Tell you what, though, the rookie orientation, it's a bit interesting because we do 15 laps from 205 miles an hour to 210 miles an hour, in that range. And then once you check that box, you do from 210 to 215. And then once you do that, you do 215 and above. Well, these cars are not meant to go 205 miles an hour.
Right.
They're meant to go 220 miles an hour. So to go 205, we're lifting on the straightaways and then flat through the turns. So you're actually doing the same speeds through the turns.
Right.
It's just slower down the straightaway. So it was interesting. And then once we got to 215, it was one lap, and I put the foot to the floor and easy flat. So it's pretty impressive. These cars at those speeds create so much downforce, even with just the super speedway aero package, because we run a different road course and super speedway aero package. So had we had that road course package on, we'd probably be 20 miles an hour slower just from the drag.
Sure. Did you talking about the winds? Did you have a moment?
I had a couple.
Did you?
Yeah, you know what they say, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Well, I know now. So, yeah, there was an exciting moment in the exit of turn 2. The turn 1 entrance was fine. We had a headwind down the front straightaway, and so you turn into turn 1, there's a lot of grip on the car. And then as you get through the short chute, the stadium clears and it opens up so that wind can blow on the car. Well, there was a tailwind going down the back straightaway. So what that meant was that in the middle of turn 2, the wind would hit the back of the car and I'd get lift, or at least some sort of same effect with less downforce on the car. So being the young dumb I am, I said, I'm feeling this, but I'm going to ignore it. So I kept my foot in it after a few laps to see if the car would stick. Well, there's a bump on the exit of turn 2 as well that catches a lot of drivers out. And I hit that bump, and it kind of bucked the car, so it lifted the front first and then the rear, and I was understeering at this point because the wind was pushing me to the wall. Well, when you have a ton of wheel in it and the car bucks like that, it usually gets a catch. So I went from this to this in the matter of half a second, and I was aiming probably, 15 degrees the other direction than what I was intending to be. So, yeah, I didn't like that very much, but learned my lesson.
So, I mean, obviously in Indy Next, you guys do ovals. I mean, does any of that experience in Indy Next really help prepare you for a track like Texas, or no?
No. You add 60 miles an hour to a car on a racetrack, the world changes. Your eyesight changes. What the cars are doing changes. The closing rates change. And that was the thing I had to adjust to the most, was because at Indy Lights level, we're doing Iowa and Gateway as our 2 ovals. And those are short courses. They're slow. And I shouldn't say slow. Relatively slow compared to an IndyCar around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But, Iowa, it was a great racetrack. You can run 2 lanes wide or whatever. But you go to Gateway, and you're actually braking sometimes into turn 1. And so that speed difference is a lot. And the cars are not accordioning as much. The accordion
Right.
effect is what we call it. As a car enters the turn for a road course or a corner that you're braking at, it'll close up that gap. And then as they exit the corner, it'll open up. And that's just the natural progression of how the time works relative to the speed in the cars. But on an oval, we're doing, I think my dad did the math, and he's back here. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was like 320 feet per second around Texas Motor Speedway. And so that closing rate is super high. So say a car lifts and they're coasting a quarter second before I realize it, I'm going to be in the back of them if I'm within that half a second time.
I mean, that's a
And
football field second.
Yep. Yeah. So those distances go by fast.
Oh, yeah.
And so for a super speedway, you have to adjust your timing of everything, what you're looking for, what you're looking at, and you're feeling the nuances of what the car is doing, because little things become big things on an oval. At 240 miles an hour, a small understeer could be the difference of in the wall or off the apex 5 feet. There's just so much happening all the time that could end up being a big deal if you don't catch it soon.
Absolutely.
I saw where you were. I was reading a little article, and you were talking about when you went and tested at Texas, and you were talking about getting into turn one, trying to find your spots on the track. Was that something that really, took you by surprise? How hard it was to maybe find your entrance, get into one? Not only is it speed, but you kind of got that double kink there, and obviously, the cars are so much different, but. Is that something that took you a little bit to get used to, plus all the G's that you generate at that place?
Yeah, it was. And part of the deal is because we're going so fast, we have to look so far down the road. And so at a track like Texas, I'm only looking as far as the wall will let me see. So you have the inside wall that will bump up to the edge of the pit lane there as you're coming onto the racetrack. But from the entrance of turn one, you can't see turn two. Or vice versa, you can't see the exit of the turn. And so I'm looking 500 feet ahead, but it's just not far enough, because 2 seconds later, I'm going to be at that point.
Right.
And so you have to get to a point in the car where you know where those markers are on the track. So, okay, if I turn in here at this rate with my hands, I'm going to end up there, or vice versa. So there's going to be, it's trial and error. It's kind of like the, what do they say? Ready, aim, fire. It's ready, fire, aim. So that's how you drive an IndyCar on a super speedway.
Talk a little bit about driving the, so hold on a second. Go ahead, Scott. I've lost my train of thought. I'll remember here in a second.
Now I have to create a train of thought, but I just think it's so interesting to hear your viewpoint of it, because there are drivers in here, people who've raced places like Winchester, Salem, big fast places around here in sprint cars and midgets, which it's somewhat similar, but it's really interesting to get an idea of what you're really going through. And as we discussed, like the G's, what is something like Texas? Because it's sustained G's, it's not just a momentary thing.
Yeah.
At what point in the race, does it start wearing on you, or does your adrenaline just take over and you don't notice it?
Well, if your adrenaline's going that much where you don't feel it, something's wrong.
Right.
That means that you had a bad moment and now you're recovering. So that's the thing with these races. They're long races, and so you got to be able to stay calm in the heat of the moment. Otherwise, you're just going to burn yourself out by the end of the race. So you do feel it, and at Texas especially, because it is a high downforce, high bank track. So there's a lot of weight in the car, a lot of downforce in the car, a lot of G-forces in the car. And I started to feel it in my hands and my arms probably the second pit stop. When they did the refuel and new tires going through 3 and 4, I was grunting to turn the wheel. You're doing, I can't remember, 50 lap stints or something like that. And about lap 15, the weight of the wheel starts to lighten up as the tires go away. So for 15 laps, you're grinding it out, trying to hold on to the car.
And that's something that brings me to another question. For the first time in your career, you're really managing tire degradation.
Yeah.
And then, because, all of a sudden now there's so much strategy. You got, the road courses, you got push to pass, you got tire deg, you've got, obviously all the tools inside the car. How has that been to really learn and start to manage?
On the ovals, it's been great. I was able to get a hold of the car at Texas, and we started moving up during the race. We were up to P13 from P23. at some point there and actually led a lap. So I was feeling good and comfortable in the car. I was feeling the tires, and we were making them last a long time. The team did a good job of getting me a balance that I could, adjust the tools accordingly so that if I was running in traffic, I could go one way and save the front tires. And if I was by myself, I could go the other way and save the rear tires. And so there was just a lot going on there that I felt like I was comfortable doing. Now the road courses, they're a different animal. I'm still learning those. I still haven't had an experience that I've known yet. And so I'm hoping that going into Barber that, it's a track I've been to. I've got my first Indy car experience out of the way on a road course, or at least a street course. And so it's not an all new experience. I'll be able to get a handle on things a lot better. But, one thing that I've noticed the most is the tire degradation effect through the alternates versus the primaries. And I think that this year, the alternates, they're a little bit different of a compound than what they've had in the past, which I know nothing. So
you're kind of ahead of the game on that,
I
really,
guess I
in a
am.
way.
I have no preconceived idea of what the car is going to do. I just ready, fire, aim, right? So, but yeah, that's something that's caught me out. Is like I'll go from the primaries and say, okay, I can drive it this hard for this many laps, and it's going to hold on. And then I'll switch to the alternates, and it's half of the lifetime. And so that catches me out towards the end of an alternate stint when we need that to carry through. We got fuel in the car, but we don't have any tires left. So still learning that, still learning how to utilize the tools there. But Long Beach was second time that I've run a full stint on an alternate set of tires. So there's guys out there on the field that have thousands of alternate stints.
Right.
So it's funny, actually. This is a stat that someone might laugh at, maybe not anyone here. I laugh at it. But my teammate and I are both 21 years old. The last time that Helio won a race at Long Beach was before we were born. So, put it into perspective.
Now let me ask you, have you reminded him of that?
No. Here's the deal. I'm a fan of Helio, so I'm not going to put any dirt on
you might
his-
want to just let him
his
know
story
that.
there.
Just, so he knows.
Poke a little fun every once in a while. He
Right.
might like it.
Because he seems like he'll take that well.
Yeah. I actually found a Helio Indy shirt from 2004 at a thrift store for $2. And I said, that's coming home with me. So I got it. So I'll make sure that I'm wearing that when I tell him that story.
Tell him you got it when you were what, like you'd be like what, 3 or something?
I think it was 2.
2?
Probably, yeah.
Tell him you were preparing for this day. I got the size I needed.
I mean, what's it like to race against people? I'm guessing, you watched the Indy 500 growing up as a kid. I've seen the old interviews where you say you want to, be an IndyCar driver when you grow up, be able to race against the Scott Dixons, Elio Castroneves. Talking about pinching yourself, I'm sure that's something you have to pinch yourself about, like just being on the track with those guys and competing in the same race.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. Like, I'll see him on track, and I get cocky, just naturally. And that's not my reaction off the track. But on the track, like, we were at Texas, and Helio was the driver in front of me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll get around this guy. And then I forget, oh, yeah, he's a 4-time Indy 500 winner for a reason. And, well, I didn't end up getting around him, but he showed me a thing or two before I was able to do that. So it wasn't necessarily a pinch me moment in the current state of affairs there, but after the race, going back and watching the race and going, okay, that's pretty cool.
I can definitely confirm you race like that at Fast Times.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah.
It's a little different, though. We're not Scott Dixon or Elio.
Well, it all looks the same to me. I'm going around.
So, have you had any good battles yet? Like really, like something you could say, man, that was a heck of a battle.
Yeah, Texas for sure, with Helio. I mean, we went back and forth at least a couple times. And Texas is a track where in the past they haven't been able to run side by side because they have that PJ1 compound on the outside line. But this year was really, really good. The series did a good job of adding more downforce to the car where we could run that outside line and run side by side, run 2 wide, almost 3 wide. I mean, it's like 2.5 wide. I tried the 3 wide, it didn't work. And then that just, it made it fun because you could run in a crowd and make moves and lose moves. It wasn't just whoever's fastest is going to get through. It was like, no, you have to play it out. You got to play the game of chess. And that was by far the most fun I've had on an oval. That was the first time I was able to like see, okay, you got to use the arrow here and use this line here and make sure your timing's on here. And all of that played into 3 laps later when you're trying to make a move. I mean, you had to plan it out 5 laps ahead pretty much to get a run on a guy. You had to use picks. You had to use the aero wash from other cars to either suck up in front of them or, pinch them down into the aero wash so that they would lose the grip and not get the run out of the turn.
So we've heard a lot of people talk about, obviously coming from the Indy Lights or Indy Next car, like a lot of drivers who go into IndyCar say like the IndyCar, and you may have said this the first time we had you on the podcast, IndyCars are almost easier to drive because they're engineered to basically do what you tell it to do. Indy Lights car, you kind of have to, I guess, drive it more, or it's not as responsive. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd probably go back on my statement a little bit from then. But yeah, my initial reaction when I went from Indy Lights to IndyCar was that the IndyCar does what you want it to. Mm-hmm. As a driver in an Indy Lights car, you're kind of handicapped by the car's capabilities and the amount of adjustability it has. And so for an Indy car, we have open dampers. And so that means a wide range of options for what I could get the car to do. But my thing is right now, I don't really know what I want the car to do. I'm still learning what a fast car feels like. I know what it feels like in an Indy Lights car, and that usually was hanging it out on the edge, lots of oversteer, a pointy nose, so you can get into the apex and get the car rotated and get off the turn. Well, the Indy car doesn't drive like that. It doesn't like that. So if I wanted a fast Indy Lights car, it's not going to be a fast Indy car. So I'm progressing and getting better, and I'm learning from my teammate a lot. David's done a good job of getting the team with the resources that they have to roll off the truck with a car that's in a window. And so that's in a window for David, but it might not be in a window for me.
Right.
And so there's nuances there that I'm still learning. I'm still seeing, okay, if we do this with the dampers, this is what we're going to get out. Oh, I like that. Can we go back and do that again and do more of it? So, yeah, I don't know if it's easier to drive, but you have a lot more tools at your disposal.
You mentioned you and Lucas are the same age. He obviously he has a season on you. And like you said, I mean, you can really, because you see the world kind of the same way. Through your age, through your experience. Is that easier, you think, to have someone your age, or would you, in your, in the perfect world, would you have somebody who's been there for 6 years, 8 years?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The thing with a teammate is that they're your biggest help and your biggest competition all at the same time.
Frenemies.
Yeah, frenemies. It's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So in the same way, like, I'm glad that David is in the same spot in his career, roughly, as I am. And we grew up go-karting together. So a lot of our knowledge and experience is based in the same sort of foundation as far as career-wise. And I think that allows us to understand what each other are going through and what we're seeing and what we're feeling. And the vocabulary that we use is also aligned in that way as well. And so I think it would be beneficial to learn from a driver that's 6 years down the road. But at the same time, I think that the relating side of things may not be there.
Right.
But because David has done well enough and had a rookie season last year, I can see what mistakes he made. And I can see the areas that he struggled in and then not make those same mistakes. So I'm still learning for myself, but I'm also learning from what he has learned from.
Yeah, I think when people look at that deal, I think a lot of people undersell David, personally. I mean, I think he's done an amazing job in these first year and 3 races. It's hard, as you know. I mean, and you guys are, I think it helps, maybe this goes against other wisdom, but I think being at Dale Coyne's, I think, is a good thing as well.
Absolutely.
In terms of it's pressure. It's not Roger Penske pressure. It's not Andretti pressure. It allows you to run and grow. You can perform.
Yeah.
And really grow as a driver and as a person in the sport. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that I just think for you and David, I think it's a great place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun, too. Like, I'll tell you guys, does anyone here know who Poncho Carter is? Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
So at my rookie orientation at Texas, Poncho was my spotter. Well, I convinced him and Dale to sit down in the trailer together after the test and start telling stories with each other. And that was some of the most fun I've had. And I think with another team, I wouldn't have got to experience that.
Right.
Because Dale's been that guy for so long, and Poncho's been that guy for so long, they're invested.
Right.
They're passionate about what they do, and that plays into the team's success. So, as a driver, it's fun to see Dale's passion through the way that he acts and treats other people, and also he's a great guy. You know, you walk around the paddock, everyone loves to see Dale walking around,
Right.
and so it's because of the quality of person that he is. You know, he cares, and it shows.
Well, I mean, he's worked as hard as anybody who's ever done it. I mean, you know, from his early days as a driver to today, it's you know, it's been great to watch. You know, you're talking about Pancho. I don't think there's anybody who had more talent than Pancho in his day, and I don't think there's anybody who's ever been tougher than Pancho as a driver. You know,
Yeah.
it just unfortunate. You know, he was injured, but it's amazing he was. You know, you think about it, he ran road courses. You know, with how his legs were and that sort of thing. You know,
Dale would agree with you there.
Pancho's always way up there in my book.
Yep. I've seen him in action now. I agree.
So one of the big differences from Indy NXTCar to IndyCar is aero screen. What has that kind of process been like for you to adapt to the aero screen? I know they have the hose or whatever it is, but we've heard a lot of drivers say it's really just pulling in warm air. Like, does that really help, or?
You know, I haven't noticed a big difference physically with aero screen, and I think part of that's because of the training that I do.
Yeah.
You know, I train at Pit Fit, and part of that is heat acclimation. And so during the summer, which we're not in right now, obviously, it's freezing cold outside in the morning, but they'll open up the garage doors and it'll be 90 degrees and 90% humidity in the gym.
Right.
And they're having us do hour and a half long cardio sessions. But during the off season, I did a lot of sauna training. So I meant sitting in the sauna post-workout for 30, 40 minutes, and then getting out and doing a reaction drill to try and keep my mind sharp. And so one of the things that I think is underestimated in motorsports is the physical side of things, because we have to drive the car for 2.5 hours on average, 2 to 3 hours. St. Pete, for example, was almost 3 hours. And we're doing it from a heart rate of like 140 to 180 beats per minute in a car that's over 100 degrees in the cockpit. And so for other athletes, let's say a runner, for example, they'll train, and when they go out for a run, they like to get what they call a runner's high. And that runner's high is where they can kind of, I won't say zone out, but they're in the zone, right? They're pushing through the pain. They don't even feel it anymore, and they've hit that rhythm. But as a race car driver, you're almost trying to avoid that. Because when you get that runner's high, when you're at that level cardiovascular-wise, you get what I like to call brain fade. And that brain fade is when you see drivers out in the lead make mistakes. I think J.R. Hildebrand was one of those drivers, you know, leading the last lap at Indy 500. He got that brain fade and tuned out for a half a second with lap traffic in front of him and hit the wall and lost the lead of the Indy 500. And so I think that there's plenty of examples to show this. And as a driver, you have to train past what you're going to see in a race. You know, you have to practice for what you're never going to see. So the heat acclimation of the aero screen is part of that. I think when it comes to Nashville in August, it'll be a little bit hotter and a little bit worse, but I haven't had that yet.
Get ready.
Yeah.
It's going to be rough.
Yeah, it'll be hot.
So, I mean, obviously there's people out there who say race car drivers aren't athletes, which we all know that they definitely are. But, so, I mean, take it through, like, what's a normal day of training like for you? Like, when do you start training? Like, what do you do during the day to train, like on an off day?
Yeah, so we usually train for 1.5 to 3 hours, depending on the day and the type of training that we're doing. But a lot of times it's either cardio training, strength training, endurance training, reaction, and neck. We have to have pretty thick necks in IndyCar with the amount of G-forces that we're pulling. So when it comes to a cardio day, we'll spend, it depends. It depends. There's different styles of workouts that we can do. There's what's called a threshold medley. And a threshold medley is a series of workouts where you're using 90 to 95% of your heart rate for 10 to 20 minutes. And you'll do 3 sets of that, and you're trying to go as fast as you can, sustaining that heart rate. And so you're essentially trying to blow up the muscles with as much blood flow as possible so that you're starving them of any sort of life at the end of the threshold there. We'll also do lactic capacity intervals where you're creating that muscular endurance, as well as like longer, easier cardio days where we're sustaining like a 70 to 80% heart rate for an hour, hour and a half, and doing reaction drills in between to stay sharp. And then on the reaction side, there's light training boards. There's a lot of things that we can do because your eyes are a muscle. And in the car, you have to have quick eyes. You have to be able to see things before they happen and anticipate what's coming and react accordingly. And so we're constantly moving our eyes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Even when you're driving just in qualifying or something, you're looking up the road at the apex and then back where you are. And you're looking past the apex and then back where you are. You're constantly doing this give and take of where you're looking at. So reaction becomes a big part of it. And I actually think that's what saved me at St. Pete, staying out of that crash. I mean, for the most part, I was able to continue, but I didn't hit the car in front of me because I had good enough reaction to back the car down and get it sideways. And then on the muscular endurance training side, we'll do any other training that other athletes do, like lifting weights, squats, deadlift, bench. Today I did a lifting workout where they do isometric holds, which is similar to what you're going to experience in the car, because you're not just turning the wheel and returning to straight. You're turning and holding and holding and holding and holding and holding. And some turns, like at Barber Motorsports Park, like we're going to, they can be 10, 11, 12 seconds long of holding the wheel at a certain angle. So that's muscular endurance that's required to hold the wheel at that. And so what we'll do is, say it's a bench workout. We'll do a minute long, as many reps as possible, go all the way down and then hold halfway for 5 seconds. Then finish the rep, go back down, hold halfway, 5 seconds. So you do that just constantly repeating, again, blowing up the muscles, starving them, so that when you get in the car, they're like, oh, oxygen, blood flow, this is amazing.
You see, Scott, I think we should film a video at Pit Fit called Scott Bowie Works Out of Pit Fit.
No.
I like this.
The walk from the car to inside
that
would
may
be
do
as much
it.
as the video you'd get. I'd be passed out. No, working out is nothing anybody wants to see me do. So, we're going to change directions here just a little bit, and because we're kind of getting to toward the end of the show. There's something I want to give you a chance to talk about, and I think we talked about it in first time we talked to you on the show. But there's two things that are really evident. Three things really. You got a great personality. You're a family person. And you're a man of faith. And could you kind of talk about those things and how they relate to not only your life, but how you go through racing and do that type of thing?
Yeah. Well, and I think all three of those things are tied together.
Yeah.
Very much so. So I've said all along the way that racing is not where my identity is found. Jesus Christ is where I find my identity. And part of that is that, we can't rely on results to tell us who we are. And as a driver, it's really easy to fall into that trap. And I fell into it back in 2020. It was my fourth year in the Indy Pro 2000 series at that time, and it was a make it or break it season for me. And I'm telling you guys this story just as an example of where my faith came into play and how it's affected my life. But we went to the first race after COVID hit. This was after that 2 weeks turned into 4 months sort of a situation.
Yeah.
And so we went to Road America for our first race. Went out on track for qualifying, and we had a fuel pump issue, so didn't get to qualify. It's like, oh, all right. Well, it's a great way to start the season. Started at the back of the field. We're working our way back up. So started last, finished fifth. Now, that was a doubleheader weekend, so we actually had to start where we finished the previous race. So I started fifth for the next race, finished second. So I had a fifth and a second my first two races of the year after starting dead last. Pretty good. Now, going into the next race, which was Mid-Ohio, qualified, I can't even remember, top four probably, somewhere where I could fight for a win. And we had a good enough car that I was like, okay, I'll move forward from there. I know how to make moves around Mid-Ohio. I've been here plenty of times. And I finished 10th for no other reason that I forgot how to drive. I drove off the racetrack, I spun out, and I hit another driver all in the same race. And I got off the racetrack after that, and I looked at my driver coach, who was Victor Franzoni, if anyone know that name. And he didn't have anything to say to me. And Victor's a pretty talkative guy. So he just shrugged his shoulders and walked past me. He was like, all right, I get it. I understand. So I put my helmet in my cubby, and this was a catalyst moment for me. I actually went out for a walk there at Mid-Ohio in the trees and ended up taking a knee. I was like, all right, God, I've given everything that I know how to give for as long as I can remember. And I'm either not good enough, I make too many mistakes, someone runs into the back of me, parts fall off the car, we just can't get it right. Like, I give up. I give it to you. And I can't do this anymore. And at that moment, I had a Bible verse come to mind, and that was James 1. And it says, consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. to let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And in that moment, I realized, like, okay, I get it. All these moments, all these trials, all these stupid situations that I'm sick and tired of have been something good. They've been used for something more than what I can dream of. And I think God put those situations in front of me because it taught me more than it would have been had I won every race, had I been super successful. And that's not to say that that wouldn't have also been great. But I think that
It'd be nice if you kicked a few of those in there, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it goes back to there's a proverb that says, man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. And so it creates a dependence. And that dependence is what relationship is built upon. You know, it's not I'm solely dependent. It's I'm relying on you and I'm trusting in you no matter what, because I know that what you have is greater. And I think that through my career, I've seen that time and time again where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to start 5th. I'm going to pass this guy. And we did this and we're going to do that to the cart and the motor's great and we're going to go to the front. And then I'll flip and hyperextend my leg and blow up a motor. It's like, okay. Well, that's not really what we talked about, God. And at every step, I think that I've grown deeper into my faith because of what I've seen, the miracles that I've seen, and also the support system I've had. You know, my family is a big part of my career, and I've said this. You know, I finished 2nd in the championship last year in Indy Lights, and the guy that won is not an IndyCar. And that is not a testament to who he is or who I am, but who the people around us are. Mm-hmm. It takes a village to get to IndyCar. And that comes down to my mom. She's my momager, I like to call her. My mom and my manager. And then my actual manager, who is Peter Rossi, Alexander Rossi's father. My dad, who's been my mechanic all the way through day one, go-karting, and then is now my chauffeur and, I don't know, biggest cheerleader maybe and biggest critic all at the same time.
Well, he's a videographer right now.
Yeah, and then my grandparents as well. I mean, my dad has missed one race in my entire career, and it's because he was laying on a hospital bed trying not to die. And he was still on the phone every 30 minutes to us. We couldn't get rid of the guy. He was telling us what tire pressure to set, what engine temperature to run, what width to run on the rear axle. I mean, we couldn't get rid of him, even when he was dying. So I think that, like they've been a huge part of my life, and they've encouraged me and conditioned me to have a little grace for myself and to be faithful through it all.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, I mean, so many things in life are so hard, you know, for many different reasons. And I contend that auto racing, I mean, outside, I'm sure, not that I have kids, but in the division of non-children raising, auto racing is going to be one of the toughest things anybody could do. It tests you every day.
Yeah.
It tests you many times a day.
You have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
Absolutely. It can really just destroy you. I mean, if you're not careful. And I think you have to have something that is your North Star, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that there's been other drivers that I've driven with, teammates, that have challenged me in my faith, not towards it, but away from it, right?
Right, sure.
And I think part of that is because they don't see the value in it. They think that it's just a brainwashed faith that I've believed since day one, and that's not the case. It's something that's earned over time. At least the faith side is, you know.
Let's be honest. It's scary to put your faith in something that you can't.
Absolutely.
It's hard to touch.
Absolutely.
So,
but I found security in it.
Right,
I found peace in it because my identity is not tied to the results. Therefore, I can perform at a higher level without the pressure.
Right.
And that's not to say that I don't want to win and that I don't feel called to win. We're called to be excellent. It's not because of our faith, but it's in light of our faith that we're called to be excellent.
Right.
So, and that's in anything. And I think that I can enjoy my work so much more because of it as well.
Sure. Yeah. No, I can totally see that.
So, you know, kind of talking about that, obviously, like we said before.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, just to say, you know, we live in a world today where, whether you believe or don't believe, people don't necessarily like people having opposing thoughts and opinions. I think it's great that everybody, obviously we don't know each other's face, but I think it's great that you guys respect that out of you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's very brave to sit here and talk about it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, as we said in the beginning, you're getting ready to approach May, which is the biggest race in the world. Kind of how are you approaching the month going? I mean, obviously we got Barber, and then we got the road course race at the Speedway, and then May. I mean, how are you mentally going into the month?
Well, I can tell you now, my focus is on the next 2 races because those are the 2 that I think that I can learn the most at because I've been to those tracks before. So I have a ballpark idea of what it looks like to race around there. And that's not to say I hadn't raced at St. Pete, but St. Pete was my first time in an IndyCar at a racetrack. And now I'm getting to experience, my 4th time in an IndyCar at a race on a track that I know and have been to. So going into the month of May, though, I'm beyond excited. I mean, like I said, I'm still pinching myself. I got to run the IMS Oval this last week. And, Newgarden drives by me, and then Dixon drives by me, and then I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. Even though I'm slow, this is really fun. So, there's a lot to learn. And the thing about the 500 is that you got to sneak up on it almost. You don't want to scare it away. And I'm learning that from Dale a lot, and a lot from my engineers because they've had experienced drivers coming through there recently. With Sato being there last season, they got a lot of good information from him that I think I can learn from, not just on setup wise, but on how to approach the month. Because my spotter and I, we've actually known each other for the last 4 years, and he was also Sato's spotter last year, and so we've got to see the dynamic of those 2 and what Takuma was looking for in the car versus what I might be looking for. And my lack of patience in the car, I think, comes out on the oval, especially because if I feel understeer, I say take a big swing out of it and give me oversteer, and you don't want that on the oval. Right? And so I think that creeping up on it is probably going to be the hardest thing that I can do because I'm going to want to be fast right away, but that's not the way it works in this place. You got 34 cars with some of the best drivers in the world and some of the best teams in the world competing. I can't expect to show up and be P1 on day 1. So
day 2 would be all right.
Day 2 would be all right. Hopefully just the last day. The last day is all that matters, right? It doesn't matter
Actually,
until
just
then.
the last lap.
Yeah, last lap.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's my goal. Is I want to be learning as much as I can through the whole month, sneaking up on it. I don't want to be doing this 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. I want to be constantly moving forward, whether it's baby steps or big steps. That's what I want to do.
Right. I think it's going to become interesting to you as you go through those drives under that tunnel. When you pop up on the other side, you would think it becomes mundane, and what you'll find out is every time you pop up on the other side of that tunnel, it's going to mean something more to you every time.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that already.
Absolutely. There's just like a different energy. Right when you go on the other side of the tunnel, it's just completely different energy.
Yeah. I'm excited. I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, so, tell a little bit about the differences between, well, actually, first, I was going to mention, so we're talking about David, your teammate, David Malukas, and we're talking about just the talent level in IndyCar. And they just released a video, I think it may have been Delcoin Racing, where he was talking about, I forget what track it was, maybe been like Barber last year. He was talking about being behind willpower, and he was saving fuel. You know what I'm talking about?
I know
he was
exactly
saving
what you're
fuel.
talking about, yeah.
And David wasn't. And Will was just as fast, if not faster, and he realized, like, when he was saving fuel, he was taking a completely different line. And that's just someone like me, it just blows your mind. I mean,
it blows my mind too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Experience is the great teacher, I think, in a lot of things, especially in racing, because there's so many nuanced situations that happen on the racetrack that as a young driver, again, you don't know what you don't know. Ignorance is bliss. You think you're doing the right thing till someone else does it better than you. And so I think for that situation with David, he had his eyes open to it, and therefore I had my eyes open to it because I knew it's something that he saw. So those are situations that are going to happen all year, I think, for me, is that I want to recognize things that David recognized last year. And so St. Pete was actually a great situation for me, having crashed at the beginning of the race, because I had to save fuel in order to make it a lap back up.
Right.
I had to pit after the leaders. So I had to save fuel better than the best fuel savers. And so I had to learn quickly on how to save fuel with different lines, different break points, different sort of situations where otherwise I might not have got that opportunity had I been racing wheel to wheel like David had. You know, I think that because he had the opportunity to fall back and fall behind Will, he was able to see, oh, that's what that does. So,
Sure.
Yeah, it's all part of the fun.
As we wind down here, do you have any events coming up? Anything that you're doing?
I have a race next weekend.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Besides that, I meant more as we get toward the month of May. And do you have any signings anywhere or anything that you know of yet? Or no?
No signings anywhere as of yet. I heard I have a street sign going up on Capitol in
yeah.
Maryland, so
That's right. There
pretty
you go.
excited about that.
Are you going to put it up? Because they
I
usually
don't
let
think I'm
drivers
going to put it up.
Really?
I think that we're out of town when they're putting it up
Oh.
or something. So, yeah, bummer. Oh well. I'll go take a picture with it though. I'll be
Oh,
there.
absolutely.
It's at Capitol in Maryland if anyone wants to go check it out. So
Nice.
right there by the convention center, I think. But yeah, I'm sure the events will pick up as the,
Right,
the
I'm
month
sure.
of May continues. My momager is my calendar gatekeeper at the moment, so she'll tell me the day or two before probably I'm supposed to be somewhere. I just go where I'm told, so it's less of a distraction that way, and I just fly by the seat of my pants, I guess.
There you go.
I will be in the parade. That's true. Yeah, I got to watch it last year. Now I'll be in it, so that'll be fun.
The I want to give people a chance if anyone has a question for Sting Ray. Anyone have a question? No.
Does anyone know if my name's real or not? Okay, you do know it's my real name. Okay, very good. All right, I won't tell that story
See,
then.
well-
I like it. That's a good group.
See,
Oh,
that's-
not everyone? Well, do you want me to tell it?
Go ahead.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, all right. So the boring side of the story is that Sting is actually short for Sterling because my dad's side of the family's heritage is from Stirlingshire, Scotland. So there's that side, and then we have the Ray side, which is actually from my grandfather's. So I had a grandfather named Ray, and then I had another grandfather named Philip Ray. And so we took that, combined it together. And then the less boring side, the more exciting side, and the part of the reason why I'm a race car driver today is the Corvette side of the story. My parents were big Corvette fans. My dad actually has a 1966 C2 Stingray Corvette in the garage at home. And what's it called? It's not correctly modified. What's the?
You mean the NCRS?
Yeah, the NCRS, the National Corvette Restoration Restorer Society.
That changed.
Yeah, now it's not correctly restored Stingray. Yeah, there you go. So it's not what you heard? Well, there's the story. Oh. Dad, is that true? I haven't heard that story. Oh, there we go.
Just
All right. Well, not unrelated from Sting the singer. So Stingray the race car. There you go.
We we do have some giveaways courtesy of Top Gun Racing and Grand King Race Shops. So let me see here. We have some hats and some towels. But let's do some Stingray trivia. Let's see here.
Oh, those are pretty cool.
Yeah, you can take one. We have plenty.
you can have one.
You want one?
You can get one of those.
All right, so I think this is the coolest one. Grand King Race Shops hat.
Got Grant on the side of it.
Yeah. So let's see here. I don't want to make it an easy question. Here, you want to ask a question? Let's
Well-
make it Stingray trivia.
I know too much about me. I don't know what's unknown.
Is your nickname Schwinn?
It's my nickname, Schwinn. No, nickname. I do have plenty of nicknames, though. Let me tell you. Does anyone know where my first win was in the road to Indy? Other than my dad. I'm sure my dad knows this. My first win in the road to Indy. Is that too tough of a question? Someone's getting their phone out. It's a
No,
race.
can't do that.
It's a race.
I'm asking my daughter.
Oh, okay.
Texting her 'cause she would
This is a phone a friend moment.
I don't think there's any phone to friends
Well,
allowed.
it sounds
The
like
race-
your daughter's
race-
a huge fan, bud.
Do we want to try another question?
Yeah. Okay. What name two teams Stingray drove for in the road to Indy?
There you go.
There you go. All right.
All right. Hunkosen and Andretti was his answer there, which is true. There's 2 more. There's 2 more. Does anyone know the other 2? 3 more. My dad says 3 more. What's the third one? Yeah, so that was already said.
Yeah,
so
he said that.
Juncos and Andretti were the
Andretti
2 that
already
he said.
Typing too fast.
Cape was not one. No. So both these teams are no longer around. I'll add to that. I'd be very impressed if anyone got these. Pelfrey was one.
Oh wow.
There was one more. They ran back in 2006. They won the championship in Pro Mazda. I'm pretty sure. With a driver by the name of Ace. More? They're based on the West Coast, California. Anyone? No one? Do I
you know
get a
Scott?
hat if I guess it
Yeah,
right?
you can have a hat.
Okay, it was World Speed Motorsports was the other team. So that was my first year in the road to Indy.
All right. What action sports athlete basically got you involved into? That's a big hint.
This is a big hint here. I'd be surprised if anyone got this actually.
So when you were, how old were you when you saw the video?
I was probably 4 years old when I saw the video.
He saw a video of a certain action sports athlete jump a go-kart. You've already answered.
You know his last name?
Jump.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want the hat? It's got a Nitro Circus on it.
Man, nice road.
So the deal was, I started go-karting. Did we lose the mic?
Did we? Shouldn't.
That was me. Hello.
Are these things automatic?
Come back.
That's weird.
Well, I'll just. Oh, there we go. So the story goes that when I was 4 years old, I watched a YouTube video, which I don't know why my mom let me see this video, because that seems like a bad idea for a 4-year-old boy. But I watched a video. It was a Nitro Circus video of Travis Pastrana jumping a go-kart into a foam pit, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. And so I didn't tell my mom that that's what I was going to do, but I asked for a go-kart for my 5th birthday. Sure enough, it showed up. We didn't get the foam pit, however, but we started racing. So that was the kickoff for my racing career.
Right on.
Anybody with a set of Firestone tires on their car? Besides the guys who get them for free. Here, give her a hat. Give her the Firestone hat.
They're really good tires, though. Oh, there's back there in the back they have Firestone? Nice.
Who's got Firestone?
Way back there in the back. Is this part of the Pit Fit video? You walk into the back table?
This is. I hope they have do they have oxygen there at Pit Fit?
Do they have auctions in Pit Fit?
No,
I'm-
like
oxygen.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. We can drag you out to the car when we're done.
Well, the rest of the stuff we can just people can just come up and get something. But we need to come up with a good question that people are going to get for this one, because this is a nice hat. I wouldn't actually mind having this hat, but
Okay, I have a question. Where did I get my first win in Indy Lights? It was last season. Laguna. That's right. You guessed it.
right on.
That was good.
Scott's going to deliver this one as well. We're getting ready. We're getting ready for Pit Fit.
It's just a warm up. Yeah.
All right, we'll give away one more hat, and then the rest of the stuff, people, we have some of these people can come up and get one if you want one. There's some Firestone cups. So, all right, trying to think of a good one here.
Should we go with an IndyCar stat?
Yeah, let's go with IndyCar.
Well, I don't know any of those. Let's see. What's a good one?
Trying to think of a good one here.
Oh, this might be a Google question.
Yeah, we're going to Google. This has to be a good one.
All right. This is for the IMS super fans, I guess. But how long are the short chutes in between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4? Is it quarter of a mile?
You just Google it.
I don't think it is.
What? No, it's not 5/8. You would think the bus driver would know.
It's 1/8.
1/8.
It's 1/8.
Oh yeah, he's a tour guide. He drives the bus around the
Hey,
track.
let's give an applause for this
Yeah,
gentleman.
there you go. The straightaways are 5/8.
Now,
So there
now
you go.
you need to take a tour on his bus at Speedway.
Maybe I have. Maybe I did.
Maybe you
How
have.
long you been driving the bus around there? How long you been driving the bus around there? 5 years. Okay, I probably haven't then.
All right. All right,
We
you
can
guys
do it.
need to get together.
We can do it.
Make it happen.
There we go. Oh, very cool.
Did you really?
You're like, do you want to drive?
Yeah, I know, right?
Rick Mears, 88 miles an hour. That's a fast bus. There you go. So the question is, what was the first IndyCar driver that I really got to know / idolize as a young driver? And that's an interesting question because I don't think I ever really had an idol in motorsports. There were drivers I looked up to in the category right above me a lot of times in go-karting. Like when I was in Mini Max, which is the cadet category in go-karts, there was a driver by the name of Parker Thompson that was winning championships at category ahead of me. I was like, oh, I want to be like him. And same thing with Kyle Kirkwood. He was a driver that was always a category ahead of me, and I was like, oh, I want to be like Kyle. But pretty soon I started to look a little bit further up the road, it seemed like. Not to make a pun there, pun intended or something. But I think that the standards that we all look to were the Will Powers, Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden. And then it's funny, I grew up wanting to be an F1 driver before I wanted to be an IndyCar driver. And part of that was because of the influence from the Ayrton Senna documentary, if any of you have seen that. Mm-hmm. And so I looked at Ayrton Senna a lot. I was very, very intrigued by his career and his ability and his talent and also his faith. You know, I think his faith was a big part of that documentary as well. So it was interesting to see all of that tied together. But yeah, so Senna was probably the first driver that I really looked up to and said, like, wow, if I could be like anyone, that's who I'd want to be like.
All right, well, yeah, the rest of the stuff, if anyone wants a towel, you can come up afterwards and grab a towel or a cup. But, yeah, do you have anything else, Scott?
No, I just want to thank everybody for coming out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Whether
you
you
all.
came out for us or not, if you stayed, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And, yeah, I mean, thank you, Sting Ray. I know the good news for you is you've done our regular podcast, you've done this show now, you've done the go-kart video, so there's really nothing else for us to ask you to do. So you're in the clear for a while. But no, we appreciate you always, especially with Fast Times. So when we did Fast Times the first time, we had our helmets on, we were ready to go, and then there was an issue with the track, and we had to leave, and it was
sad.
crazy. Yeah, it really was. But you came back like the good sport you are. Like I think it was two weeks later after
Yeah.
St. Pete. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it meant a lot, and I think I'm going to release that video the next couple weeks. So
Yeah, I personally think the future of this sport is bright with
Yeah.
people like Sting Ray.
Thank you.
Like Aaron and I were talking before, like after we first really spoke with him, this is a guy who gets it. He understands just how to be a good person, you know, I mean, just, and how to interact with people. And, it's always enjoyable. You know, I really always enjoy talking to you and man, I just wish you the best of luck. I too will be in Barber, but I'm sure I'll be in the other pits and we'll never see each
well,
other.
remember St. Pete, you were on the other side of the bridge,
Yeah,
I think it was.
he's always on the cool kid side. I'm never on
That's
the cool
new
kid
for
and
side.
we all know Scott's not going to walk across the bridge.
Yeah, no way is that going to happen.
But yeah, no, thank you, and thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.